Welcome to Global Day of CodeRetreat. My name is Juni Lulakar, and in this video, I'm going to introduce you to the format of GDCR, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about the problem that we work on, Conway's Game of Life. GDCR is scheduled for a whole day, and that usually starts around 8:30 in the morning and goes through to the afternoon around 5 o'clock. And you will get about 5 to 6 rounds of focus practice. Now, a facilitator will kick off the day with a short introduction. They'll go over the mechanics and logistics, point out the different amenities in the venue, tell you what the schedule is for lunch, and then you will break out into small groups to work with maybe partners or up to 3 people in a group if you have that many people participating. But typically, you're encouraged to just pair up with somebody. Definitely no solo work in a Global Day of Code Retreat. You're always working with at least one other person. I recommend no more than 3 people in a group to keep things simple. And then after 45 minutes of focused practice, you will take a 15-minute break in which you'll share your learnings and observations and take maybe 5 minutes to take care of personal needs. And then at the end of each round, you're also required to delete your work and not carry it into the next round. And this can be difficult for some people at first, but it's actually pretty liberating to not have to think about what you've done before and start afresh every time. So try that out and don't worry about keeping the code that you've done, that you've written in the previous rounds, because it's always a great challenge to figure out a different way to approach things every time and not go the same route all day long. So try different approaches when you work with somebody else because, like I said, you'll be switching off pairs. We try not to. Uh, we try to encourage people to work with different people so that they can get different perspectives and learn about different approaches people have. We also try to encourage people to work with different languages. One of the reasons that people come to GDCR is so that they can learn a new language. So try to pair up with somebody that works in a language that you're not very familiar with, and learn how the language might affect the way you design things or the way you test things. Um, so after about 5 to 6 rounds of this type of practice, then we'll close out the day with a fun activity, a closing circle, where we'll summarize what we've learned. And typically, when I facilitate GDCR, I like to end it with a fun activity, like maybe you have some picture taking, group pictures, or have a raffle if a sponsor has um, been convinced to provide some prizes, like maybe T-shirts. This year, Corey Haynes is going to uh, provide some vouchers, discount vouchers for his book on LeanPub, which is the Understanding the Four Rules of Simple Design. And this is one book that I would highly recommend for you to get. If you can get that before you come into GDCR, it will give you a lot of ideas for different ways to approach the problem of Conway's Game of Life, different ways to refactor things, and just a lot of good stuff in that book about better design and how you think about design and how you think about testing your code. So that's about it for the GDCR itself. Next, I'll talk about um, the rules of the problem, Conway's Game of Life. Just a quick side note about my outfit. My hat here, if you notice, is a South Park hat, and that character is Kenny, who dies in every episode of South Park. And that's kind of a nod to the rule that you're supposed to delete your code at the end of every round of practice in GDCR. And of course, this is an example of a t shirt that we gave out in our 2017 GDCR event here in Columbus, Ohio. Um, we gave these to every participant, and it was a lot of fun uh, facilitating that event. So let me now go and explain the game of life, which is the problem that we work on in GDCR. Game of life, and so you can find a lot of information on the coderetreat.org site. There's a page there for facilitators, it's facilitators, and then there's a link here for the Game of Life page that explains everything you need to know about the problem. That this was devised by British mathematician John Conway in 1970, and it's a zero-player game. So you can read all about it in the history of the simulation here on this page. I want to highlight some of the four rules that govern the game and the progression of the population of cells on the grid. So the game itself is played on a grid like this, and each cell can be occupied by one organism. We'll say that each cell can be one of two states. It can be either empty or it can be alive or dead. Dead meaning the same thing as empty. So here, for example, are different configurations of what the grid might look like. And so you have cells that are grayed out, that means it's alive, and the cells that are just white, that are empty, are dead. So here in this first configuration, you have one live cell, and each cell will have 8 neighbors. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so each the count here is the number of neighbors around that cell. So you see this live cell has no neighbors around it, so its count is 0. That's the neighbor count. And then all the other cells around it that have 1 in them are 1 because of this live cell here. That's its neighbor. This empty cell has a 1 neighbor. This one has 1 neighbor as well. This grayed out cell here, and so on around this cell. So if you go to the next configuration, we have 3 live cells. And so if you count how many um, neighbors this cell over here only has 1 neighbor, but this cell has 2 neighbors, which is 1, 2, right? And then this cell has only 1 neighbor. So if you look at the count there, that's 1, 2 neighbors, and 1 neighbor. Now coming back to the cells around it, you'll see that this cell is only a 1 neighbor, this cell has 1 neighbor, and this cell has 2 neighbors because 1, 2. Then this cell will have 3 neighbors, 1, 2, 3. This cell will only have 1 neighbor, this one here, and then this cell only has 1 neighbor, again this one, and then 1 neighbor, 1 neighbor, 1 neighbor. Then this one has 2 neighbors because this cell and this cell are alive around it. Nothing else is alive. Then this one is 1 neighbor, 1 neighbor, or sorry, this one actually has 2 neighbors. This one also has 2 neighbors, 1 neighbor, 1 neighbor. So if you look at that, that's what those counts are like. Now going into the next generation, it follows those rules, right? So the rules are any live cell with fewer than 2 live neighbors dies as if caused by underpopulation, so it gets too lonely. Any live cell with more than three live neighbors dies as if by overcrowding. It's overpopulated. Any live cell with two or three live neighbors lives on to the next generation. And any dead cell with exactly three live neighbors becomes a live cell in the next generation. So this is why um, these progressions happen. This cell, because it has exactly three live neighbors, then it will become alive in the next generation, which is why this is now alive. And this, because it has less than two neighbors, this will die in the next generation, which is that. So typically, when you go from one generation to the next, that's called a tick in the world. It basically the tick tock. There's a clock that ticks, and every time it ticks, then the next generation is calculated and configured. And all these things happen all at once. At one tick, the calculation of the next generation happens based on the configure in this current generation. So there's really no interaction between the changes in this generation to the calculation and what will happen to another cell. The the what happens to a cell will always depend on what the current generation population is, not what the population will be in the next generation. So everything happens all at once. Essentially, this is a function. One generation, the this generation, every generation is a function of the previous generation's configuration. So here's an example of a cell that dies from overcrowding. Here you have five neighbors, one, two, three, four, five around this cell. So in the next generation, it will die. So you see here now it's an empty cell with five neighbors. So if it has five neighbors, it will continue to be empty in the next generation. It will only become live, a dead cell, if it's empty and it has exactly three live neighbors around it. So this is why you see this three, which is an empty cell, become now a live cell in the next generation. Another example of overcrowding is this cell. Oops. This cell, which has four neighbors, one, two, three, and four. In the next generation, it will die, which is this, and now it's dead now, but it has five live neighbors around it. So that's it. The cells will die from loneliness. This lonely cell has zero neighbors, so it dies in the next generation. This cell has less than two neighbors, so it dies in the next generation. This one lives on to the next generation, and then it will also die into the next generation. And then this one will live on, and this becomes a stable population because it doesn't change from one generation to the next. This is called a still life. This will just flip back and forth between this horizontal configuration and then this vertical configuration. So it'll just keep flipping back and forth from horizontal to vertical to horizontal, and then next one will be vertical again. And this is called what's called an oscillator. It just goes from one to one horizontal to horizontal and vertical again. It just keep going back and forth. It's pretty much stable, but it's dynamically stable. This one is an interesting one because this one is called a glider because it will actually move from it. You see this one? It starts from up here in this corner, and then a few generations later, it goes back to the same configuration, and but it's a little bit lower, one cell lower, and one cell to the right. So it will move down and to the right, and then another 4 generations after this. Um, so this has a period. It's what's called a period. It's when it goes back into the same configuration. Um, it has a period of 1, 2, 3, 4 um, transitions before it goes back to the same configuration. But it doesn't stay put. It will move from top to bottom, left to right. That's a glider. So those are the rules. And if you have any problem with understanding what those rules are and what the transitions should be, just go and ask a facilitator to help you, and they will help you figure it out. So this year is going to be the 15th Global Day of CodeRetreat. It will be on November 7, which is a Friday, and November 8, Saturday. Again, it's scheduled for the whole day, but you can go in anytime, you can leave anytime. It's not required that you attend the entire event, the whole day event. Whatever fits your schedule, but hopefully you'll go out and find an event near you. The website where people register their events is coderetreat.org, and they have a map there, and hopefully you'll find a local event near you and that you register and go. It's a lot of fun. It's a great way to practice, a great way of getting better. And so hopefully we'll see more videos this year posted about what people did and what people learned. And I certainly will try to post something to share lessons learned and observations from the events that I'm going to facilitate and participate in. So again, good luck, have fun, and we'll see you again next time.